Well, I'm delighted and actually honoured to be joined by Kevin Bergin, the former Panther. Kevin, it's great to have you with us. I can see in the background that Panthers jersey. You've got your Panthers sweat on that you would wear, underneath all your gear and everything. We've got so much to talk about, but just looking at that jersey and that logo, sum it up what that logo meant to you when playing for the Panthers.
Oh, it means a lot. And it's a lot of friendship, a lot of memories, a lot of relationship that have lasted to this day. Uh, Three of the best years of my life. That's what that jersey means to me.
And you've played in some of the top teams in the East Coast. You played for the Brayhead clan as they were then. They played the top league in France. You kind of touched on it there. The thing about Nottingham is it hooks you in and really guys want to come back. Can you kind of expand on what it was that made you so proud and so passionate to be a Panther?
Well, it's not only just hockey. It's the relationship with the community. It's all the people around that make you feel at home the second you step foot in it. I'll always remember when I first joined Panthers. It wasn't a great time in my life personally, and the people around right away helped me out, made me feel so welcome, and that's why all the guys want to come back.
Well, we'll go back in time in a moment, but because you brought it the way you joined the Panthers, let's touch on that. You were in Switzerland. You've been in the UK with Basingstoke, and we'll talk about that. But you were in Switzerland at the start of the year, and then obviously a few games in, you came to Nottingham. How did that come about? And it sounds like things in Switzerland weren't great.
Well, half the dressing room spoke Italian, the other half spoke German. There wasn't a lot of talking, and for me, I felt like a Euro come into play in the CHL where I coach right now, where guys barely speak English and they're alone in the dressing room. The coach could probably say three or four words in English. It was a long month and a half, three practices a day, and you kind of feel alone. And you question your life choice at that point. And I kind of got lucky. Think uh, think a guy got suspended for 15 games, and Corey reached out to talk with Mike Ellis, and I was on my way back home actually because I didn't want to play there anymore. And instead of going home, and I ended up flying to Nottingham, and one of the best decisions of my life.
What did you do to get suspended for 15 games? Can you remember?
No, it's a guy from the Panthers who got suspended.
Oh, Jim Shepherd, you're right. Sorry, I misunderstood. You're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So
Jim,
because
Jim,
he got suspended or something. I don't know. I can't remember why he got suspended. I think he
he
speared
he
somebody or
speared Ed Courtney. He speared Ed Courtney. Well remembered. Yeah, I'd totally forgotten it was that kind of trade-off in that he
and I
left.
think after that they changed the rule that an import was suspended, then they had to play an import short. It's kind of
Yeah,
because
You,
of that
you're
trade off.
absolutely right. Jim Shepherd got suspended and he got off the books really quickly. Of course, the rule now is it's only recently changed in the Elite League that if an import is suspended, you can play at full strength. But in those, and it took a long time for that rule to change, but you can play at full strength now. But yeah, that was your arrival. I totally remember that. We'll come back to Panthers very soon, but let's go back to the kind of very ethics of Kevin Bergin and ice hockey. How and why did you become a professional ice hockey player? And I guess, was it always going to be in your blood?
Well, you start playing when you're 5 or 6, and then you get hooked on the support of my family. Obviously, I used to finish school, and my dad had the key to the rink, and I live in a small town, and my friends would go at the farm, do all their chores, and they would come back to the rink after. But I'd already been there for an hour and a half, 2 hours alone on the ice, so I kind of got a head start on that. And my passion for the game, I knew at a young age that's what I wanted to do, and Dad made me understand that you have to sacrifice. Sometimes that you got to go training instead of having fun playing video games, and because if it was that easy, everybody would do it. Everybody would want to play hockey and earn a living, but it's not that easy, especially when you move up the ranks. It's like the pyramid. It goes very narrow, and if you want to earn a living doing it, you got to make some sacrifice. And I was willing to do them, And as I was playing, I knew I was that passionate about the game that I always wanted to stay in it. So that's why I started coaching, and I'm coaching to this day.
Yeah, we'll come on to that nearer the end of the interview. Do you think that then is kind of what, everybody in Canada, I guess, nearly everybody, it feels like a cliche, wants to be a hockey player, but is it those that are prepared to do the sacrifices that probably make it a long way?
I think that's the key. At a young age, when you're in school, they always say, okay, probably 1% of people earn a living in ice hockey, so you better be good in school. But if you want to be that percent, then you have to make sacrifice. You have to believe in your dream and do what it takes to get there. And I had to do certain things to make sure I would go through, and I was willing to do them, and I enjoy doing them, and it got me playing for 14 years pro. And the passion for the game is the number one skill. And if you're that passionate, then you're willing to do the sacrifice. And now that I'm done playing my 14 years, I keep coaching to repay my debt to hockey, and I'm trying to get young kids to do what I do and earn a living the way I did.
I remember we used to speak every summer. And forgive me, Kevin, I should know this, but weren't you pretty good at softball? There was the summer sport that you played, and you could have gone down that route as well. It was softball. You always used to give us your videos and tells of your summers playing that too.
Yeah, well, my dad, my dad went to professional camp in baseball, and when I turned junior, I had a choice to make, either hockey or baseball. I was also as passionate in baseball as I was in hockey, but the mat, uh, there's not a lot of Canadian players who end up playing pro. So at 17, I had to make a choice, either playing baseball or playing hockey. And training camp in baseball happens when it's playoff in hockey. So I wasn't willing to not play in the playoffs to go training camp in baseball. So that's how I made the choice to play hockey.
Let's go on to that hockey then, because a lot of people go now through the NCAA route or U Sports. You took a different route, obviously, and quite quickly you got your East Coast contract. Tell us how that came about. How did you get your first professional contract in the East Coast?
Well, when I was 19, we had one of the best team in Canada in junior. We actually had like I think 5 or 6 players go on to play in NHL. We had Marc-André Bergeron, Jason Pomainville, Radim Verbatos, Zbigniew Michalek, Olivier Michaud played a little bit. Uh, so when I turned 20, we were only allowed to keep 3 on the team, and I think we were 10 guys at camp. So back then, we weren't allowed to go NCAA because we were considered professional. So my agent was Gilles Lupien at the time, got me a tryout in the East Coast, saying, "Well, if you don't make the team, we'll find you a team in junior. We'll get you traded, or we'll see how it goes." And first game, first preseason game, I ended up fighting the guy who led the East Coast in penalty minutes the year before, and ended up winning that fight, breaking my hand in the process. And head coach John Marks signed me up to a contract right away.
Was fighting something you wanted to do or felt you had to do?
Well, I learned it at a young age because my uncle won Gold Glove in the Pan Am Games in boxing. My dad that taught me at an early age how to defend myself. Uh, I knew I was gonna have to do it, but I also enjoyed it, and that's the key because a lot of guys can fight, but if they don't enjoy, then it's not going to be part of their game. They're they're gonna do it once in a while because they have to, because they get jumped. But when if you like doing it, if you like sticking up for teammates, if you it's and not a lot of guys are willing to do it, and I felt like I had an edge. If I was going to bring that to my game, that was going to help me play professional.
And we'll go on more detail there actually now because it was hard to find a full list of who you fought in the Elite League. Obviously, some of them stick out to me after watching all of your Panthers career. They stick out quite vividly. Sean McMorrow, Jason Rushton, Derek Campbell, Brad Voth. I'm sure that there are more. You could probably reel them off the tongue there. But again, how much passion did you feel? Dropping the gloves for the Panthers.
Well, as soon as you drop the glove and the 7,000 people get on their feet and start cheering, yeah, it's you get goosebump. I still get goosebump thinking about it when that happened. Sometimes I let people know because some of those guys didn't play a lot during the game, so I felt like if I was going to fight him in a third period, I was going to have a disadvantage because I'd be tired. So when I had to settle things down with some of those guys who played less, I'd tell them in warm up, and I'd tell my friends before the game, make sure you don't miss the first minute because I'm gonna get that out of the way so I can start playing hockey after. And you drop the glove first face off. I remember one time Bruce ended up dropping the glove before me, fighting Finnerty, and then I ended up fighting. Can't remember who right after, and the atmosphere at the arena. I don't know what it's called now, but the atmosphere in Panthersville is amazing when once you drop the glove and people get behind you.
Yeah, I remember that. Now you point that out. The amount of times people knew that a Kevin Bergin fight was coming, or maybe a Ruben Nader or a Bruce Richardson. The game's really changed now. What do you think now? I mean, I know you keep an eye on the Panthers. Probably had 6 fights last season in total throughout the season, whereas in your day there was probably at least a fight or two a game. What's your view now on the fact that fighting is slightly beginning to disappear?
We we put a lot of pressure on referees now. If if the referees don't call a game very tight, uh, things can get out of hand. I'll give you an example. I played 3 years in the elite league. I never really got slashed that much. My first year in France, where fighting is not allowed, I got a broken hand from a two-hand slash from a guy probably 5'7", 145 pounds. I don't think that guy would have took that liberty if he knew that I would go after him hard after. Uh, so you put a lot of the stage fighting. I don't think is it's got his place in the game anymore. But I think sticking up for teammates and make sure the game is played the right way, that people don't take liberties with their stick in the face and cross check in the face and stuff like that. When stuff like that happens, I think the referee should let somebody come in and take care of business. But that's just it's professionally. I feel that if you take that away from the game, you got to make sure the referee call a really really tight game to keep the game clean.
The thing is, with thinking back to you fighting, and you were a guy that could fight, but you could also play. I'm going to come back to some Corey Nielsen comments about you soon. You could play, you could go on the power play, the penalty kill, you could score, you could assist. But looking at those fights, you fought some of the biggest heavyweights in the elite league, guys that were brought in those days just to fight. Sean McMorrow. Let's be honest, he could fight. He didn't bring too much else to the table. When you went up against these guys, what was your thought process? Because you obviously knew you were coming. Jason Rushton was super tough. You knew you were going to be fighting a tough guy. What was your thought process when you were fighting a guy that was as hard as nails?
Well, fight him early
Yeah.
so you have energy because those guys don't play. So that was my number one rule. I've had, the way when we lost Schmierzy my second year, uh, my life was a lot easier with Schmierzy on the team. Uh, he would take care of those guys, and then I could just stick up for teammates bad stuff would happen. But if you don't have a Nadur or a Schmierzy on the team, and then you want to make sure those guys don't take liberty on other players. So fight them early. When they get their fight, they go sit on the bench for the rest of the game. That was my thought process behind it. And that was one of the role on the team, and I enjoy doing it. If that would help the team win by getting somebody else on the team that could score goals, then I can do both, so we could save a roster spot, help the team. I was willing to do it, and I enjoy doing it. Man, I wasn't winning him all, because obviously when you give up 20, 30 pounds to some guys, it's kind of hard. But it's part of the game. And after that 5 minutes, I could start, I could play, and and I always wanted to have the best team possible. So if that's what I had to do, that's what I had to do.
Well,
Yeah.
talking about Smearsy, brings me back to a famous game in Sheffield, which I want to touch on in more detail in a minute. But you won 6-3. Smearsy high-fived the Sheffield bench, and you got a hat trick. Obviously, a lot of and I did some research, and there was at least 2 or 3 hat tricks I found that you got for the Panthers. But what kind of gave you most satisfaction as a player? A fight that could ignite the game and turn a game, a goal or assist, or are they all just equal?
I think they're all just equal. It's not just fight, assist, or goals, back check, big hits, blocking a shot on the PK, screening the goalie for somebody else to score. All those little things, you know, that's why I think that's why we had success. We were such a tight group. Everybody knew what they had to do, and that's why it was so fun playing for the Panthers.
Yeah, let's go to that success in your first season. What a game that was in Sheffield, because I remember Jody Lehman was the starting netminder for the Steelers. His wife had gone into labour. So in that first leg, a young lad called, he's not young anymore, but he's still involved in ice hockey, Davy Lawrence, went in goal. I remember Sheffield, you probably know this story, but Sheffield were panicking because obviously their starting netminder probably wouldn't start. I think they even looked at ways his wife giving birth in a suite at the arena so he could play the game, but it never worked out. Simsy tells that story. It never worked out. So David Lawrence played in net. Obviously, you guys won 6-3. You got a hat trick. Smearsy's high fiving of the bench is pretty iconic. What do you remember about that from your memories?
Well, sometimes those games can be trick games, because the other team kind of rally around the fact that their starting goaltender is uh, is having a baby, and you don't want to take him lightly, because their starting goaltender is not playing. So we had a really good start. We had a good game plan. We want to put pressure early, going to the net. It's one of those nights where everything I touched was starting into gold. I would just hang around the net, close to the net. I remember Corey hitting me back door after a turnover, and on another turnover, I came in down the slot, took a clapper, kind of aim at right at the middle of the net, and it went bar down. Those kind of night. You don't know why. You wish you could repeat them every single night, but that night, everything I touched was turning to gold, and I ended up even having an assist on the Schmierzy goal where he high-fived the bench, I think, and that was priceless.
Yeah, it's great memories, and if you ask me some of my best Panthers memories, that game's got to be right up there. You secured the trophy, I think, a month later, the following month. I think you lost the Steelers by a goal, but you won on aggregate. Just what was it like to win a trophy in front of the passionate Panthers crowd?
That was a very weird, because it was one of the first time in my life where you
The
start the
aggregate
game and you're
score.
already up. You're already up three. Uh, it's it's a tough way to start the game, because you kind of you have a cushion, and then the other team scores one early,
Do you
and then
remember
you're like, oh,
because Sheffield reduced it to one? They were two up at one point.
yeah, 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 yeah. They scored a couple early, and I remember we looked at each other. It's like, okay, now our lead's gone. We need to start playing. Like we kind of when I say trick games, when you're up three before puck drop, and you don't have that experience because we don't play football. In football they do it all the time, but North American guys that first start playing in the elite league never experienced that, and that was kind of weird. But we rallied around later in the game, and we found a way to make sure that aggregate were up, and the feeling of lifting a trophy in front of the fans, and they had a couple of tough years, and then that first trophy was awesome.
I think if by memory, one, you poured beer on me while I was doing an interview on the BBC, and secondly, I think in that interview, did you not say that that was your first trophy as a professional player?
Yeah, exactly. First trophy. It was it's a memory I'll always cherish. The the party after the game was memorable, and
What are you
I
talking about?
wish
No one had
every
any
single
drinks at
player.
all.
Pardon me?
Said no one had a drink at all. What are you talking about?
No, 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 no. Nobody went on the ice late at night in the arena, and I know it was quite the memory. But let's just keep that one in the closet.
Yeah, I mean, but if you can't celebrate when you win a trophy, hey, when can you celebrate? Let's move on to talk about, you came back for the second season, and you know that year was when Panthers changed, and you said you talked to Corey Nielsen, who obviously you knew from the past, and you came back to sign for Corey because obviously he was player coach. Sorry, he was a player in his first 2 years, and then took on the role for your second year as player coach. How
Yeah.
key kind of has Corey Nielsen been in your Panthers story?
Well, I don't think if Corey doesn't play Panthers, I'm not sure I would have been a Panther at all, because when all that stuff happened in Switzerland, and Mike Ellis was looking for a guy, right away Corey called. I ended up living at his house for the first couple of weeks, before Simon could find me an apartment, and that second year when he took on player coach, uh, it was it just felt right to resign and to play for him. I knew him from the couple of years earlier. We played together, and we actually fought each other in the East Coast. And I always told him I don't know what he was doing, because he's not a fighter at all. And he got traded to our team a couple of weeks after, and we ended up being good friends after that, and it just felt right to play for him, when he first started player coach, and he brought Brucey that second year, and that's probably why I coach now, because of Corey and Bruce, because Bruce was player assistant coach and Corey is player coach, and we had a lot of talks during that year, and I kind of got hooked on coaching that year.
I mean, it's interesting you mentioned that Corey Nielsen situation with you guys fighting and playing, because when I was doing my research to try and find things and jog my memories, there was an article that obviously probably stemmed from an interview I'd spoken to Corey in October 2009. And you'd just returned from an ankle injury, and you'd straight away gone and fought Sean McMorrow. And Corey's quote said you went out for his first fight and fought the toughest guy in the league. But what's interesting is Corey does remember that incident with you guys. And his words were, I remember the day you beat me up. I fought Bergie in Fort Myers. I was in Pensacola. My coach put me up as forward, and I was frustrated because our team was so bad. I tried to pick a fight. I picked the wrong guy. He hit me once in the head, and then in the penalty box, he was looking at me, asking what was I thinking, and that was about it. Then I traded to his team 2 weeks later with a big lump on my head. Typical Corey, eh?
Yeah, yeah, typical Corey. But he he's a special guy. You gotta know him. You gotta know him. If you don't know him, sometimes he comes across. Uh, you don't know how to read him, but once you get to know him, it's very fun to be around.
And I know you weren't here when Panthers obviously won the league, but how proud were you to kind of be part of something that really started it? That those roots were kind of grown under Mike Ellis, and then Corey winning as well, which we'll come to soon because you beat the Steelers. No, you beat Cardiff Devils to win your second trophy, which you'll come on to soon. But how proud were you to kind of be there in those early days when the seeds were sown for really what was a dynasty for the Panthers?
Yeah, the first 2 years of Corey, player coach, he kind of got his feet under him. Uh, as far as coaching, because it's kind of hard. I think it was kind of hard for him because he was a really high risk player, and sometimes you got to ask other players to make safe decision. But he was kind of paid to make the high risk decision at some point, but you had to find a balance. And we were there, and we kind of saw him grow. We helped him win the first two trophies, and I think when he retired, that's when he won the league. Am I mistaken?
The year he stepped down from playing, I think he stepped down in January of that year to become, he was player coach. He stepped down to become head coach, and that was the same year that we won the title. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really very very hard to do both, and I'm so happy for him. You know, he's come a long way from player, and I playing in Bred, being player assistant. You know, I had a glimpse of what he had to go through. When you become player assistant, the guys don't invite you all the time, and you're part of the coaching staff, and when you make the transition to coach, uh, you're not part of the boys anymore, but you got to still be close. It's a lot different, but I think he he had so much success that it was fun. It's fun being around when it's all started.
And one of those things that we're talking about is that the second trophy that you won was that two-legged victory over a Cardiff Devils side. First leg was in the Big Blue Tent, no longer with us. From memory, a 4-2 win, a place you had to go and battle hard, wasn't it? Do you remember much about that win?
Royal Rumble. It's that place. Is thank God it doesn't exist anymore. Let's just put it that way. You went there. They were built. They were built for it. They were big. They were tough. They were strong. They knew how to play it. Going in there and stealing and getting a two-goal lead the first leg was huge. And in those days, not a lot of teams would go in there and win some games. So I remember Marty Gascon, that game, had a hell of a game, and a very very small player. He had to pay the price. Uh, a couple of points. I think that game everybody paid the price, and that's why if you want to win a trophy, you got to sacrifice your body, and you got to sacrifice for the team, and that's how we ended up winning the trophy.
Yeah, and then the second leg again, you lost on aggregate. I remember it was a thrilling game that went this way and that. Cardiff actually leveled. I think they were 2-0 up and 3-1 up at one point. But in the second period, Marty got a goal. Mark Levers, David Clark, Kevin St. Pierre, your good friend as well. Did you have memories again of winning that trophy, by seeing off the Devils over two legs?
Of course, those red jerseys.
Yeah.
I lost my dad's house. Went up in flames this winter. That jersey was in there. That red jersey. Winning the trophy with that red jersey. That jersey was kind of special. And again, we didn't learn from the year before when we were up three and we had a slow start. We were up two again. And, the other team came out flying, and we were kind of too loose to start the game. But when they leveled, we found a way. We found a way just to battle back and pay the price, like I said before. And a couple of big saves, couple of again, Mark Levers. They were not the biggest guys, but Clark, he would always find a way to get a snipe in there, and I again, Tantra had a good night that night.
It certainly did. And talking about Clarkey and Levers, Matthew Myers, Robert Lakovich, they're just some of the names of players that played, in your era. How important were the British players, do you think, for taking players from North America or from Europe kind of under their wing, showing the sights and getting you settled?
Yeah, well, the import numbers was less when I played, I
10 or
believe.
11, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it was key. It was key to winning, to having the best brick back. And I think that second year, Matthew Myers went and had a year in the East Coast, and that kind of hurt us a little bit. I think I think if we'd have played with us that year, I think we would have been a lot closer to winning the Elite League as well, because we had such a good team. But just one spot missing, you could tell. You could tell that we it was huge back then. So the Danny Myers, the Harkey, the Levers, Lacko he was such a young kid. Now he's still playing, but he was he was just a baby back then, and he could eat some minutes. So now he was even Tom Norton playing some minutes on D at some point. Um, the Brit back was and the fact that we got along so great, uh, so nice.
And talking about the British players there, Bergie, again, you touched on people like Norts and Lacko, who were from Nottingham, but also bringing in Matthew Myers from Wales, Clarkey from Peterborough, Danny Myers from down south. Myers, epitomised being a Panther. He wore his heart on his sleeve. He led this team as captain. Again, it kind of really kind of puts into context about what being a Panther was all about and the passion that people had for the club, even though that they weren't from the area.
Exactly. They bled black. It's kind of they bled Panther, and they would transmit that to us right away. How passionate they were about being a Panther, and how proud they were about being a Panther. And it's just easy to step in, and they made us feel like at home. Uh, we had such a great connection, great relationships, um, on and off the ice. It was just fun to be around.
And let's just touch as well, because we touched on that Sheffield rivalry, but you also built up a superb rival with Coventry Blaze, and that was fun. I mean, you think back, Paul Thompson was the coach then. Ironically, he's now back in the league with Cardiff Devils. Danny Stewart, of course, was a guy that fought regularly. I mean, I think it was Bergie. He used to fight regularly. He's now head coach of the Panthers and led us, of course, to a playoff win last season. That rivalry with Coventry probably became as intense as the one against Sheffield Steelers in that kind of era when you were playing for the club.
Thanks to Johan Moline White Skates, Team
Yeah,
Hollywood.
Team Hollywood. Yeah.
Yeah, Team Hollywood. He called us Team Hollywood because Molly was wearing white skates. Uh, Not sure why he wore those, but he was pretty good with them, so we didn't say nothing. But yeah, that game when the Team Hollywood comment came out, Bruce took offense, fought Stewie. I think a couple teeth went missing. Then Carlisle Lewis and I ended up fighting. Uh, and then rivalry was on like Donkey Kong. It was just every single game being a battle. And I think it kept going on even after I left. Guys running the goalies and all that stuff. So,
Yeah,
you don't
there was
see
a
that
game
kind
you
of good
fought
old
at.
hockey anymore.
There was a game. I don't think it was a game where the two of you and Bergie and Bruce had fights, but there was an incident, a warm up in the Sky Dome once. Can you remember that one?
Yeah, yeah. No, there was an incident also when we played Cov in the Elite League playoffs. We almost had a line
Yeah.
brawl in the warm up. They took offense to Clarkey's goal celebration the night before, and
Yes.
yeah, 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 yeah. They didn't like the end going up.
Yeah.
Something I can't remember, but they crossed the red line, weren't happy about it, and back then it was a little looser on the rules for suspension and stuff, but fans enjoyed it, and we were able to play the game still after.
There was the bench clearance brawl, yeah, where Brad Cruikshank, someone you probably played with in Basingstoke,
Yeah, yeah,
ran Craig Kowalski. Were you ever
yeah.
involved in bench clearance brawls in your time?
Yeah, I was in one in the East Coast actually when I played in Pensacola. They're no fun. You don't know where things are coming from, and that's that part of the game. Kind of happy it doesn't happen anymore because that's really dangerous. Fighting one on one is one thing, but when you got guys coming from everywhere, that's kind of dangerous. I don't want to see that happening anymore, but you know, uh, sometimes tempers flare up, uh, and you gotta step up to the plate, and you gotta do things to make sure your teammates are protected. And now these days, like I said, referees are calling tighter games, and you gotta make sure that you don't want to get suspended for half a year.
And talking about Brad Cruikshank kind of brings us back to how your journey started in the UK. Basingstoke, a very different club to the Nottingham Panthers, a very different rink. But a lot of people that go to Basingstoke speak fondly of it and speak fondly as the club. Tell me about how you came from the East Coast to come to the UK and the Basingstoke Bison.
Well, I played with Duncan Del Mayo, who was player assistant coach there, and I was looking for a tryout in the AHL at that point. I led the team in goals and fights in the East Coast. I kind of felt like I did everything I could at that level. I was looking to move up either AHL or Europe, and by the time that I couldn't get a tryout in the AHL, pretty much there was not much space left, and Duncan called me, and I enjoyed my time in Basingstoke, but like you said, the importance of having a Brit pack of high quality. We played pretty much 30 minutes a night, pretty much two lines, sometimes 3D, 4D. At sometimes, I go back and forth, help out on D when guys were absolutely tired or a couple guys got in the box. Um, it was tough because we didn't have the quality of the Sheffields or the Nottinghams or even the Coventry back then. So, in the third period, we were always gassed, and other teams would, we competed very well, but we were always, a little short. Uh, so that's why we couldn't compete to be top of the table. And when I had the opportunity to join Panthers, I played there a couple times already. I knew the rink was beautiful. It's nothing compared to Basingstoke. When I first got there, you don't go there for the rink, but it was close to London. I had a good time there. People were nice, and but nothing compared to to the way the Panthers organization run their program.
Yeah, I mean the Basingstoke ring shut down, but I believe they're in the process of restarting this year and bringing the team back. So let's kind of move your story on a little bit before we finish. Obviously, your 2.5 amazing years ended, and you moved to France. Just talk us through the process of you ending up in France for a few years.
Uh, yeah, I got an opportunity to go in France. I'd been at Panthers for 3 years. I was looking maybe to resign, and the opportunity to go in France, and I one of my good friends, Cal Mallet, was playing there, and I went to watch their playoffs. They played, best of seven playoffs. They played less games. They played 26 games regular season, and no fighting. So I was getting at 30 years old, and my hands were kind of getting beat up a little bit. So I figured I can maybe extend my careers by 5, 6 years if I go play in France. Uh, since I spoke French already, I kind of wanted to try uh, new things and had a good contract offer. I took the opportunity and I went there. I spent 3 years also like I spent at Panthers, and it was a good city. The way of life's very different, but I enjoyed my time there as well. Uh, it was kind of hard for me not playing as many games. A guy that let's not kid ourselves. I wasn't the greatest skater, and when you don't, I always found I was at my best when we played 3, 4 games a week. I get the rhythm, and that's why I had success in France in the playoffs, because the best of seven we played a lot. Sometimes they change their ways now in France. They play 44 games, but when you played 26 games, sometimes you played once every 2 weeks, and it was kind of hard for me to stay the rhythm. I really enjoy the way of living, but the hockey, I enjoy my hockey a little bit more, playing a lot more games. Uh, but I really did enjoy playoffs in France, because the best of seven, it's not like the final four where you play 2 games and you win the trophy. So two different experience. Enjoy them both. End up meeting my wife in France. She's followed me ever since. So I'll always be grateful for my 3 years in Amiens as well.
And then, of course, you come back to the UK to play for Braehead, who are now called the Glasgow Clan, but originally they were Braehead. Strikes me that you came as assistant coach, as you mentioned earlier, but you played under Ryan Finnerty, a guy that you love to do battle with. I'm pretty sure. I mean, obviously Bruce had a few fights with him. Can't remember whether you did, but it's funny how you go from being people who just wanted to beat each other up to suddenly you're coaching a team together.
Yeah, I chased him around, but since he wasn't in the same weight class, he never wanted to fight. So when we signed Bruce, I told Bruce, you know, you're his weight class, so you got to take care of him, because playing against him, it was so frustrating. He was always in your face, yapping and yapping and yapping, and but if you hate somebody, it's probably because you'd enjoying having on your team. And it came out of the blue. He called me. He's like, "Hey, I got a spot. I'd like you to be player assistant. I know you're passionate about the game. Played against you for 3 years. I'd like to have you on my team." And my jaw dropped. I'm like, "I chased you around for 3 years. You're gonna offer me a job?" He is like, "Yeah, yeah. I need your kind of guy on my team." And we're really good friends to this day. Like I said, if you play against somebody and you really don't like him, it's probably because you want him on your team.
I mean, I'm just thinking now as well. I feel like there was a year he nearly became a Panther, and probably not many people know this, but I'm sure there was a year when maybe the year you and Bruce were together. I think he was playing abroad, and he maybe ended up at Cardiff. But I'm sure there was a tiny chance he could have became a Panther that year. I'm just picturing now you, Bruce, and Finner on the same team. That would have been something. That that really would have been something. But yeah, I look at the characters that the Panthers have played against, and I think Finner for me was someone I'd love to have worn the black and gold, but he never quite did. Let's move on now to kind of you ending your playing career, and obviously you ended up back in France. And I think a few people know this, but maybe some of the current fan base don't. But in your final year, didn't you play on the same team that Jonathan Paraday, of course, who spent with Panthers, was a assistant coach? Your final year saw you play under
Yeah,
Jonathan Paraday. What a
yeah.
character!
He was assistant coach back there. Yeah, in Dijon, France. He Very, very good guy. Very nervous. Probably smoke a pack of cigarettes in between periods every time. But I really enjoyed playing for him. You know, he's very funny, very friendly. Knows his stuff. Uh, I know things. Was kind of tough for him for at Panthers with everything that happened. But he's back in France. He's doing good, and I'm happy for him.
Yeah, I think we all are. I think everyone in the club was delighted to see him win last season. And then you talked about how you were assistant coach at Braehead, Glasgow, and then obviously once you returned home, you took up an assistant coach under Bruce Richardson. Just talk us through how that developed and how it panned out that you and Brucey were back together.
Yeah, I had signed in Dijon uh, for the year. We're actually in the process of looking for another apartment, and we were still in Dijon after the year. We lost in the semifinal there. I was playing with Marty Gascon, and out of the blue, I get a call from Bruce. Hey, Bergie, I gotta fill up an assistant coach job in junior major, and you gotta take the train, or you might not pass again if I find somebody else. You know, I was 33 at that point. Figured I could play maybe another 2, 3 years because the hockey in France wasn't very very physical, so I'd stayed in good shape. But I figured if I started coaching with Bruce, I could coach for the next 20 years. So when that opportunity came up, I asked the wife. She was willing to move to Canada. Uh, she was girlfriend at the time. We were engaged. We were supposed to get married, you know, in like 14 months. And all of a sudden, we had to get married in the next month, and we had to move. Our honeymoon was one move from Dijon to Amiens, and the second honeymoon was Amiens to Victoriaville. It was kind of hard on her, but she's a trooper. She's always stayed by my side, and she's always supported me. And now we have 2 kids together, and I'm very glad. I'm very thankful for Brucey to offer me that job to start right away in junior major. Not a lot of people have that opportunity, and now I've been able to coach for the last 10 years because of that.
And you talk about starting a family. Is there any chance of following in the footsteps? I know your son Tristan is already on the ice. What are the chances of seeing a Panther in 15 years or whatever?
Very good, very good. He loves ice hockey. I bring him to the rink a lot. He loves being on the ice with the guys. Uh, Big right shot. He's probably going to be, he's 99 percentile, so he's probably going to be more in the shape of my dad, a couple inches taller than me, and probably bigger. Uh, he's huge. He's huge, and he loves it. He's got the passion for it. He's got a bit of a temper, so I'm hoping that fighting won't be completely out of the game by the time he gets there. But uh, I'm hoping that he's going to keep the passion. I'm going to be there to support him, and do everything I can for him to be able to earn a living the way I did.
So what you're saying is you've given him a few fighting tips already.
Grandpa's taking care of that already.
That's absolutely brilliant, Jimmy. That's great to hear that Jim is teaching. And talking about siblings brings me on to Brucey, how everything's connected. So, of course, his son Blake plays for Concordia University, and Concordia University are coming over to the UK. They're going to play the Panthers in pre-season. Just tell us a bit about what we can expect from Blake. Last time anyone connected with the Panthers organization knew about Blake, just this tiny little kid, and now he just a bit like the Nielsen sons both play in the UK now, and one of
I
them
was gonna say, I was gonna say, it's coming full circle because I saw Corey's kid crying in the middle of the ice, not wanting to play ice hockey, and now he plays for GB, and
yeah.
and you know, and
Well, now he's. I mean, Cade of course plays for the Clan. Logan was a Panther. Now he's a Steeler.
yeah,
Um, let's touch first on Blake. What can Panthers expect to see? When they see him step on the ice in a few weeks.
not Bruce, but he's a very smart player, very very smart, skilled, intelligent on the ice, knows where to be. Uh, he doesn't have the fire or the aggressivity. I'll put it that way, that Bruce had on the ice. But he's a very smart player, always at the right spot. Playing in the system. Coach always love coaching him. I actually coached him for 2 years. And you can put him on the power play, you can put him on a PK, everything that's got to do with systems. Very smart. He's probably going to end up coaching one day as well. But you won't see him drop the gloves, I don't think.
It's just crazy, isn't it, to think that you mentioned that team together and that team togetherness when you were there, and how now you're watching these children go up. If you say Blake's going to come back and play on the ice, in front of the National Ice Centre at the Motor Point Arena, both of Corey's kids have played for GB. One of them's say played for the Panthers and now has become a Steeler. Do you know when like you mentioned the story about Logan? I think when you said crying, I think it was Logan who wasn't. Cade was always a hockey nut. It took Logan a bit of time, but eventually, was there evidence that all these kids? Because you obviously probably saw them skate where you had a family skate, when it was Christmas or whatever. Was there evidence that these kids were probably going to go on and do it as a profession?
Well, when you see your dad being involved in it, it gives you an edge on everybody else. And I babysat those kids. Babysat. We were playing mini hockey in the apartments. Corey had a small house. I actually learned. Corey taught me a great tip. Yeah, I think it was Logan who wanted to be a goalie, so put him in the net and put full gear on, put a helmet on. He's like, "You really want to be a goalie?" We know Corey had a good shot, full boat clapper with a tennis ball right in the melon, boom. And he's like, "I don't want to be a goalie anymore." So Corey looks at me and goes, "If you ever had a kid, if you want to save millions of dollars or a lot of money, because the goalie is very expensive. That's the trick. You don't want to be a goalie anymore." So when Tristan wanted to be a goalie, I put him in net. Boom. No, don't want to be a goalie anymore. Perfect.
And just listening to you talk about your teammates, and it strikes me that, looking back, for example, last season, one of the key reasons, there was lots of reasons Panthers won, but they were a united dressing room. They enjoyed spending time off the ice just as they did on it. Looking back, that start of the Panthers' success, how crucial was it that family feel? Because if you look down the roster, you guys all hung out together. You like to play hard on the ice. You like to have a drink off it. You like to spend time, socializing. How important was that family feel behind the scenes to your success at the time?
Well, I think it's the biggest reason team have success. And that's why it's so hard recruiting. And it's probably the biggest part of coaching in Europe is recruiting, because you can't just recruit guys because they're good. You gotta find a way to recruit guys that are gonna get along. So you gotta do a lot of homework because there's a lot of good players, but there's a lot of selfish players. And you get one or two of those guys in the dressing room, and it can ruin an entire year. So you know, I give credit to guys who are coaching and recruiting and building teams, because that's the hardest part. X's and O's in coaching is really, really easy. And for us in junior, we can make trades, and even in American League or in NHL, you can trade guys. They'll trade somebody because it doesn't fit in the dressing room. But in the UK or in France or even Germany and Europe, you got guaranteed contracts, and you spend a lot of money on visas and apartments and stuff. So recruiting guys who are going to get along and are going to make a team is the most important thing. And I think they've done a great job of doing that. And I was glad to to be there at the start when we were pulling the foundation bricks, the blocks on the foundation of kind of the new Panthers, because they were a long time unsuccessful. And I think they went on to win like 10 trophies. I was part of the first two, but I think in a span of 5, 6 years after that, they kept that family uh, mentality and ended up winning what, eight or 10 trophies.
At least that, yeah, at least that.
So So that's the key of building a team. You know, you need a team. You just don't. Good players won't get you to you can see it even in the NHL with the Florida Panthers. You know, they don't have they don't have the two best players in the world, but they still win back-to-back cups because you need a team to win in this game.
And you're right that that was the beginning of a dynasty, and obviously in recent years things fell away. But obviously the club's maybe gone full circle. When you joined the Panthers all those years ago, started to win. Obviously, Panthers. We ended our search for a trophy this year with the playoffs, and it does feel like something special is building. I wonder how. I know you keep an eye on things in Nottingham, and how pleased were you to see that obviously the club had won again last season.
Well, of course, you always want a Panthers. You know, when once you've been a Panthers, you always look, you always want them to have success. They were so good to me for the 3 years I was there, and not I know Omar, obviously played against Stewie, so I'm happy for those guys that if they can start on a tear like when Corey started, then I'm going to be very happy for those guys, and it's just good for hockey in Nottingham.
And just finally, we'll go back to the fan base question because you obviously built up a phenomenal relationship with the fans, and it was in the days before social media. You think back now, guys can get their message out and get their personality across via social media, but that kind of wasn't massive in your day. Your relationship stemmed from what you did on the ice and how you conducted yourself off the ice. And we used to have lots of meet the fan events, didn't we? In bars, in the corner house, where
Yeah.
we spent time chatting with the fans. And I just kind of want to end about, a lot of the players now say the fans are one of the main reasons they come back. We've just won a trophy, and most of the guys have said, the fact that they won a trophy for the Panthers and saw the delight and saw their passion. Can you kind of put into words, how that passion and relationship was with that amazing fan base that's been the cornerstone of the Panthers for years now?
Yeah, it's something I try to teach my kids in junior, especially the guys that are 19 and 20 that are going to turn pro. It doesn't cost you anything to shake hands and sign autograph and be nice to people. And you never know what's going to happen after that. You know what I mean? And some days, 10 years from now, you might go somewhere and they're going to recognize you, and just because you shook hands and you took 2 minutes to talk to somebody, it's going to help you a great deal. And now kids, they're stuck on their phone all the time, and sometimes even on the bus they send each other text message instead of talking to each other, and it drives me completely crazy. Um, so so you're Big Jimmy.
Bit of Jimmy, yeah. Why not? Why
Sorry.
not shoot Jimmy for a few seconds? There he is, the legend that is Jimmy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Story of him sitting in my stall at playoff weekend is legendary.
That was that after the loss in the final, yeah.
The loss in the final against Sheffield, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That was the was that the one we were shut out 2-0?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that because Jody Lehman turned and celebrated in front of our fans, didn't he? And
Yeah.
I did the
Yeah.
commentary for the BBC Radio Nottingham, and I've told this story a couple of times, but he turned to our fans, didn't he, and celebrated. And on the commentary, I said, "That's classless. He shouldn't have done that." And by the time I'd come downstairs, and I knew Jody because we had a lot of guys that played for Sheffield that year. Didn't Test move on to Sheffield? Played for the Steelers. Oh no, he probably Tess had come back to Nottingham by then. Anyway, to cut a long story short, he celebrated in front of the Panthers supporters, and we weren't too impressed by that. But yeah, what you're talking about your dad in your store. That was after that game, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Simon got a call from some security guy saying they were going to throw my dad out, and Simon said, "Let me do it, because if you're going to do it, you're going to need a lot more guys than that to get him out of the rink." So
Yeah,
yeah, I ended up coming in the dressing room and he was standing there. I was kind of like, first was pissed of we just lost the final. Then my dad's in there. I was like, what's going on? So then my dad tells me the story. I was like, okay, just wait outside. get undressed.
Yeah, but going back to I mean, there's so many stories we could do a separate interview about the kind of ones that probably should be kept quiet. Um, Going back to that, yeah, that you kind of touched on it there, but that fan base, that the Nottingham fan base and relationship with its players has been the cornerstone, hasn't it, to the club over the past decade?
Exactly. That's why they put 7,000 people in that rink, and it's probably this. I would say the second most watched sports in Nottingham, and it's not after football. And I know back when I played, Forest weren't very good. Now I hear they're in the Premier League, and you can't
Yeah.
get a ticket to get there anymore. But uh, I when I played there, I used to make fun of the guys saying they took me the first three games was no goals. So I kept telling those guys, why do you go watch a game when it goes 0-0? And I've been to three games, I haven't seen a goal yet. So they got so fed up, they bought me tickets to Champions League, Man United against Bayern Munich, and I understood why they were crazy about that sport. But now Forest are in the Premier League now.
Yeah, just one thing before we finish. It reminds me, talking about other sports, we got you playing cricket. Can you
Yeah,
remember? We got you playing.
yeah,
We've
yeah.
done that
Remember that?
promo
It's a lot.
again. Yeah, we've done it a couple of times more. Some of the guys a couple of years ago went down the nets, but you actually went. The last promo we did was in the indoor nets, but we actually got you on the outfield on the actual Hello Turf. And I
Yeah.
remember, and obviously your baseball swing came to the fore. You were pretty good at cricket, if I remember.
The I could hit the spin at
Yeah.
the with the baseball swing because I could short hop it, but the fast bowler, whoo,
I wish I could
that was
remember who
hard.
who bowled to you, but it was a couple of professionals from Notts at the time. Part of me thinks one might have been Graham Swan, who went on to become a England bowler. You probably can't remember, but
I
yeah, just
can't remember, but
yeah,
it
but
was a lot of fun. It's a lot harder than people think.
it was yeah, and just trying to remember. But again, what were the kind of I'm saying that your baseball talent came to the fore. Was there kind of a bit of agreement between the two sports? Was there anything that you
I was
didn't do?
curious because I think it was a big event, the Test 2020 or something like that. And I asked around. I was always curious to see if I could hit it, and I think you got me in touch with somebody, and we ended up making a little thing with them, and interview with the BBC, I think, and
Was
it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
It's a lot similar than baseball, so I want to see if I can have a try at it. Maybe I'll try out for next year's team. We'll see.
You reckon? What do you reckon, mate? Will you make a cricketer out of him?
You can make a slugger 2020 maybe.
We just couldn't probably persuade you to go to a test match. I know a lot of Canadians and North Americans couldn't believe you could play for 5 days and the game ended a draw.
Yeah, I can watch 90 minutes with no goals, but 5 days, not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Listen, Bergie, it's been absolutely fun catching up with you. Really, really appreciate going back through those memories, and really appreciate you spending time and chatting to us here on Panthers TV.
It's always fun, and I can't wait to go back. Bring my kids, bring the wife in Nottingham, and hopefully one day he'll be wearing that jersey behind me.
Yeah. Make sure you visit soon, mate. Speak to you again soon.
Take care.